I'll start with you, Jack. Obviously, initially, how did the approach come about? Was it you kind of doing your outreach? Tell us about how you initially started to work with, when you found Blind Screen, as it were.
The context is, because I hate sleep, apparently, I'm doing an MBA on top of starting this business and having kids and everything else. 2 years into a 3-year part-time MBA at University of Derby. The University of Derby opened the Cavendish building, was it last summer, which is a dedicated business school in the city centre. Really cool building if you get a chance to go. And there's a chap in there, Oliver, who runs this kind of enterprise centre. As I see now, you guys are very active in that community, supporting students, looking for investment opportunities, mentoring, advice, etc. Because these guys are based in Derby, and they'll tell you more about that. I'll come back to your question, Simon. The university, as well as being part of my, hobby and education, has been an amazing community business-wise. So I look at the resources, the students, the staff, the ecosystem there as people I want to help as well. So that's how we met through there.
The lesson there is just say yes to the appointment, whatever it is, be open to a conversation, right? Because obviously Blind Screen, you guys have got a good vision about where you're at, but just give us a little bit of background on Blind Screen and kind of, where you're at.
So we came up with the concept of Blind Screen. Myself and Paul have worked together for about 12 or 13 years now. Very, very different. Paul studied at Oxford and worked at Microsoft, and I was knocking on doors at 12, drilling for business and selling windows when I was 15. Paul had a business called Lead One, which generated leads. He used to generate leads from my retail company, so we had this working relationship for a long time. We got together, 2 meetings with Paul. I just said, let's go 50-50. I was always missing a Paul in business, and Paul was missing a Lenny, so we worked very, very well together. So we launched Blind Screen October 2022 to the blinds industry. Went to the British Blinds and Shutter Show. We would have a viable business if we walked up with 30 good trade customers. So the whole idea was to not just bring an innovative product to the market, which is the most energy efficient blind in the UK. We've got this energy efficient, 100% blackout, sideways motion blind, 127 patent trademarks, etc. We got our heads together, like I say, 2022. We needed 30 good trade customers. We walked up with 287 trade customers. We've now got 2,500 trade partners in the UK. It will get to why Jack's on board in a moment, but our global partner really is a company called Hunter Douglas, who own Hillary's. They own Blinds to Go. I think they did 6.6 billion last year. But the same as most of us sitting in this room, I think we all have a bit of an exit strategy. And our whole idea was for this global expansion. We're not really going to be in a very good negotiate position if our global partner is the one that might let us sail off into the sunset. At the moment, we're probably 60% of our revenue comes from one company, Hunter Douglas. So this is where Jack came on board to help us with our global expansion in finding trade manufacturers globally.
I mean, kind of leaning back into the kind of idea of how, because from the outside and from everybody here listening, you guys have got a lot, 2022 started a business and, punching right in there, going straight into the, world's leading manufacturers and playing with the big boys, as it were. What was it that you felt was, because obviously you bumped into Jack, he hoodwinked you, a bit of a nudge. You took the meeting with him, right? What was it that you felt he offered straight off the bat? I know you said Lenny, instantly, as soon as we met him, we knew that he was going to be able to bring something to the business. What was it because obviously you come from different backgrounds, but what was it you sort of thought was what he was going to bring to the table straight away?
Yeah. So I think, for me, what was really great about Jack is that he didn't just try and say that this is a solution for you. He came to our office, did a workshop, and we went through the whole map of what our key levers are. And he was able to break down exactly how we're going to be able to get that EBITDA up so that we can follow our exit strategy, which we kind of know, but it was great to go through that process and quantify that exactly. How much extra is a manufacturer going to be worth to you globally? So if you get a manufacturer in America, what are they going to be able to bring in independently? And so we by the end of that meeting, workshop, so we had a full breakdown. And we knew exactly where we were going. And the great thing about the service that Jack offered at Plug and Play is that if we essentially part with a certain amount of money, then we're going to be, that's going to be taken care of. And that's the way that it's always been operating the last 5 months. It's not just having an employee like a co-pilot in your company, but you've got a manager there who monitors everything that employee does. So I was just showing somebody earlier, just at the amount of work that co-pilot does in the WhatsApp group. They're just every single day putting updates in there. And I was saying to the chap, we don't even look at that group because Jack's on that group. He's monitoring it. He's keeping on top of it, making sure that everything's running smoothly, answering the questions, etc.
I look in that, mate.
But yeah, what I'm referring to there, boys, is the sales engine part of what we do. So we're talking initially about the profit levers and then identifying all of the different sort of areas in the business where we can make, we're talking this morning about speed, how quickly can we get an impact? So that's what you're referring to is that the implementation of that, which is the sales engine part of the back end of what we do, what Jack does. But Jack, tell us, where did you start initially? So obviously from there, the quickest sales pitch ever. Would you like to go ahead? But it was your numbers, wasn't it, at the end of the workshop? It wasn't our numbers. It was your version of when you wanted to get to.
Yeah.
So what was it that kind of attracted you to working with Windscreen?
Yeah. Well, as you've probably seen in 10 minutes, two incredibly impressive human beings and an amazing business. So,
yes, Jack.
No.
yeah, can't help myself. But when we met at that time in Derby, I didn't know any of this yet.
Yeah.
And we went through, the kind of standard discovery questions, me being curious about the business, and quickly learned that in terms of retail and trade revenue streams, you guys were killing it. And my first thought in my head was, how can I help them? And then I guess the learning for me, and probably a reflection for all of us, is we don't just want to position ourselves with somebody who is in a dire negative situation sales wise. Actually, for you guys, the prize was an opportunity cost, not a real cost. And it's when we kind of sat there, and I remember you saying, Lenny, we let silence do the work in the room, and we kind of sat there for a moment. He went, actually, there's this other third revenue stream that we know we need to do. And it's actually the most important one to maximize valuation. And right now we're not doing as much as we'd like to. And it kind of went from there.
Yeah.
And then the workshop was all about that. We realized that, and as you will, be so very self-aware and admit, Lenny, you're a lot of the personality of the company, and that's a strength. And we said, the problem is we can't wheel you around the world and meet manufacturers every day, when that's what we want to do in terms of market reach. So how do we box up your personality, your passion for the company, and keep that at the front end of everything we do?
How much of an impact, how much more confident or how much more motivated were you to get this done because you were working with Jack? So you had an idea and you're just like, right, we need to do this. And then like you're saying that you just came back and you'd done it. But does it give you a bit more urgency?
What Jack saw pretty early on is we are, I'm a million miles an hour. We have lots and lots of projects going on constantly. And like we identified when we were together, it's probably our most important thing we're not doing. So the great thing for us, and I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit, is one thing that Jack touched on straight away, which I'm sure we'll all experience, is there's always noise. Whether your office is at the end of the corridor or people are walking past, those are shiny objects. Yeah. There's always some noise. And to be able to get to a stage where we're not having to take these initial calls, we're not having to look over different emails, we're not having to check with somebody who's sending an email, make sure it's right that's going out, just to have the confidence that these guys will put a potential partner in front of us at a point where they've gone through X, Y, and Z, so they've been qualified. The amount of time that saved us is phenomenal, and we probably wouldn't have got to it because we've got this. And I'm sorry, going back to the Hunter Douglas model, it's so easy. Even though we know we need to bring our own manufacturers on board, it's so easy because this global expansion. We go, it's okay. We've got another one there in Colombia. We've got another one in Brazil through. Because
the big needle's growing, isn't it? The big needle, the turnover is growing. But you've already identified prior to, and obviously, focusing with Jack is that it's not all businesses. The business is going to value your business stronger, is it? Right? You've got to be, developing different channels and different areas of your business, and for you, it's locations, isn't it? I know it's about bringing on new partners and like I say, global expansion, that's creating value. If we double your UK turnover through the partners you've got, it's not going to value your business anymore. It's going to increase your turnover, but again, you're looking at valuation, aren't you? And trying to get that tangibility to it. And obviously that also comes with security for your business, doesn't it? Having those, having multiple straight users. So Jack, then when you started working with Blind Screen, what was the remit? You've installed the engine now, but how did the kind of conversations, how did it start? Because it was dealing with two people that have got clear. Did you take ownership of that division, that pilot idea? How did that come about?
I think because the revenue stream was quite niche, we were quite clear quite early, I think, about what you wanted and what you didn't want. So we put quite strict qualification criteria at the front end. So we don't just want any manufacturer. We want certain size of company, certain growth plans, certain experience. And we wanted to see signs of, passion for your brand as well. So we built all that into the process. And then even when they come through, we still have a layer of, we look at it together and make a decision. And I think, get your guys' thoughts as well, but I think that's served us well because we've prioritized quality over quantity, which I think is what you wanted. We probably could have had more meetings, but actually, are they what you wanted and would have they turned into what we want? So I think after meeting you guys, doing the workshop, understanding the strategy, up until this day, for me, it's just maintaining that quality and not compromising. And I don't think that's changed.
No, it's not. Perfect.
So for you, it's about kind of like using the systems, the tools, and the engine that we have to kind of get through some of those leads and generate them. And we refer to the sales engine a lot, and we're gonna get into that this afternoon. But essentially, it's exactly what you think it is, isn't it? Exactly. You've been doing it for years, and obviously you're kind of coming more with the operational side, I think, but and the strategy side of it. But it is exactly what you think it is. It's a system which has got fail safes in it, but people are responsible for each role. So what Jack's responsible for, and Jack coordinates the outbound and the nurturing, because leads that are coming into you, are they inbound leads or are we still generating? So how are we generating these leads then with the Copilot?
We use LinkedIn, some of the exhibitions that we've been to in the past. We threw those leads in, so they there go through a proper follow-up sequence. So we've got the CRM set up where we can see where each one of the leads is in that pipeline at various different stages. So we do an outbound, reach out to lots of different people, start a conversation. Copilot's there messaging each one of those individual people on LinkedIn, getting the most engaged, and then feeding them through a survey. So that survey is qualification. So they'll qualify whether that's the right type of manufacturer that we want, certain sizes, certain trade reps, certain ability, manufacturing capacity. If they meet all those check boxes, they'll fill it out. Then if they meet those check boxes, then they're then invited to a meeting. So this is all handled in the background. We just turn up for the meetings. So what we'll have a meeting on Tuesday. I think we've got a couple of meetings this week where we will just sit there on the computer, join the meeting, and suddenly we were, having a conversation. And we are a bit guilty of not checking what they put on the survey sometimes. And sometimes we're like, oh my word, this is a perfect manufacturer. I should have done a bit more research on them. But yeah, they're just all nicely laid out. And then what happens is then the Copilot then sends an NDA to that particular manufacturer. They sign the NDA, and then we have another meeting. So this is all broken down. This is this pipeline. And then once they've signed the NDA, we have that extra meeting. Then we start discussing prices and giving them a bit more transparency on what it is that we're essentially the products, etc. And then after that, then they sign the agreement to order their first container of gear.
And how different is that? I mean, you were obviously doing, this was a new channel for you, wasn't it? So you just wouldn't have had time to do this.
We tried it. We went to R&T, which is the biggest blinds expo in the world, Stuttgart. We went there 2.5 years ago. We came about 130 odd inquiries. We started thinking, I sit with gazillionaires again. We've got all these manufacturers across the globe. Started trying to make these appointments and have start conversations with these manufacturers, and we just didn't have the time. It was ridiculous just to get to a point where we've got somebody sitting in front of us now. I think that would have been 3 or 4 Teams calls for us and lots of emails to get that point. Instead, they're sitting in front of us when they've been fully qualified and we're literally there to take. So we would have been 5 or 6 Teams calls away from that point without doing what we're doing now.
And we're also looking at and we'll be talking a little bit about conversion this morning in the room, but we're also looking at like, your conversion of your calls is going to be, it's going to be pretty hot. But these guys and girls that you're talking to, they're fully educated now, aren't they? They've been through a massive process. They've opted in. They've provided all the information. I know that Jack's built you out, so we've developed that now, so it's really functioning. But within that, you've got your online you got your online forms which feed in, so it comes in automatically. Then they get sent set information. But how far away that's why I was going to ask you how far away what you're doing now is from where you were, but obviously you didn't have that. But how quickly has this accelerated for you, obviously, with working with Jack?
Because of the way the manufacturers are, they're because they kind of take a long time to make a decision. The manufacturers do. They might be launching some other products, which then they're looking at quarter 3 or quarter 4. We've got them all lined up, so we know exactly when they're going to be making that decision to decide on whether they want to bring our product. So we've got this huge pipeline. We know when they're going to be doing it, so we can almost project our revenue based on that. So we've got that predictability.
Yeah. And that must be reassuring as well from where you're at.
Yeah. And we never had that before.
Shiny penny, going after this. But now you can start to predictably know what you plan your resources around that as well. So if anyone sitting here, which there might be a few people, if anyone's sitting here think I'd like to, we might be able to get a better result out of our sales. We have the engine, but Jack is the absolute front end of his business. It's all about his specific understanding of your industry. But Jack leans into our resources because we obviously helping Jack build his business. But what would your advice be to somebody who's thinking, I think we might be able to get a better result out of our sales? What would your advice be?
I'd say, right, okay, it's going to cost X amount over the period of 3 months. That's my what I'm putting on the table. That's what I would prepare to risk to find out, what it potentially could bring in. Jack doesn't talk nonsense. He does exactly what he's saying. He's super confident in what he delivers, and that trust fed through certainly to us. Definitely give it a try.
I'll tell you something, anybody who gets to know Paul and Jack will know now is the tightest man living. I'm not joking. This guy opens the door as you walk into a pub to everyone. He is so tight, it's unreal. And he agreed to it, and we agreed a 3-month trial. And I can assure you, if we didn't think it's financially viable, we most certainly wouldn't do it at all. I'm not joking. I can't even have the petrol on the business like everybody does. I'm not joking. So that's one anybody who does know Paul would straight away. If there's 10 people who knew sitting down here and they were thinking of doing it, they would all sign up because they know that he's done it.
You've got to bear in mind the position that we're in. We've got 1 billion views on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. We're getting contacted by marketing companies all the time, and we're just turning them down because I've spent a decade in digital marketing. So I kind of got a really good understanding of what actually happens behind those closed doors. And what Jack was offering, I thought, well, actually, he's offering all this, and the manager, which would be Jack, of course, looking over everything that's happening. Yes, certainly we could follow what happens in the background, but then, of course, it doesn't replace the manager. So having Jack there is really key because, again, he's taking the reins of it, taking control of it, taking ownership of that. And that's a big part of it. So no matter what happens in our office, all these different things could happen. Fires could be erupting everywhere, but Jack is fully controlled. He's in the driving seat. I'm running that whole channel forward.
And he's very impressive as well. So I'm going to give a compliment back. Anybody who knows Jack, it's an extremely impressive bit of an issue.
Well, I think it's really about, yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. And it's really about having that focus and that commitment to the goal. And you had the goal, and you were aware of where you needed support, and obviously you were parking this idea. So, it's obviously great that Jack was able to come in. So, Jack, for final words, really, what are you most excited about in terms of, like the sort of future working with, Blind Screen?
Well, it comes back to your guys' plan, the exit, and we can't fully control when that's going to happen, but that remains the North Star. And I don't think you've got a cap on how high you want that valuation to be. So,
but even from that, I mean, founding the business, and again, you didn't start from scratch. You started from, all your previous experience in life and in business. But to be able to start a business in 2022 and have the scale that you've had, and then be able to kind of look in and or I would say looking in from the outside, if a company with your success and your, what you've achieved leans in and can utilize and be very aligned with having an external person come in, which we were talking about briefly, I think really enhances the value of your business and makes it easier for you to, commit to those bigger goals because it's not taking your time.
That's right.
Yeah. Good. And coming back to your previous question, Simon, obviously like the mission with these guys is maximizing that valuation and built on opportunity costs, which for me is a great mission because it's kind of like, let's see how far we can go. It's not U-turn, it's not survival. And that could feel different perhaps. And for me, like I'd sit and think, well, and it speaks to you guys in the room, you're here because your business is great today. And that's, we don't want to, we probably can't help all businesses that are in such a dire place. We want people that have built really good strengths and got years of expertise and strengths we want to leverage, and it's how far can we go with it. So, be proud that you've got the invite to be here because we see opportunity to help you further than you've even got to this point. And the other thing I enjoy is, as you probably picked up, like Paul is an extremely astute businessman and ran a lead gen company. So on the surface, that could be quite intimidating for me doing this quite new. But I think we're pretty good sparring partners in a way that I learn a lot every week and every time I come to see you guys about how to improve and vice versa. And the process we described about the personality up front, the qualification, we're still finding ways to make it better. And not only does it empower you to do even more valuable things in the business, it's even better for your clients because their front-end journey is just becoming more and more seamless.
Yeah.
So by the time they've sat down and had a meeting with you guys, not only did they know who you are, they want to be involved, they're qualified, we're going to get to a point where they've already signed the NDA. So we're cutting more steps out.
Yeah.
So the more time we spend, I expect we'll just get better at all of it. And that percolates to everyone here.
Yeah. As we was creating that pipeline with Jack was like, well, after that step, then they get the NDA, then we have another meeting, and then we have another meeting about the sale prices at the end, and then we send them an email. Jack said, hold on, how about we try this? You present those prices to them on the call. So now we actually got those prices to them on the call. We can explain them. If we've got any objections, we'll answer them right there on the call. So I think that was very valuable feedback for us. So rather than just sending the price list for the individual components and then just hoping that they're going to contact us back, of course monitored, but hoping that they're going to get back to us quite quickly, we're actually getting all the objections out there as we're presenting the price right there and then. So Jack's experience certainly helped us iron out those kind of issues that would have cost us a lot of money, I think, if you hadn't had those inputs. Another great thing about working with Jack as well is that he keeps everyone accountable. So if you've got anybody in the office that you think they might be sales related, and if they've missed an appointment with one of our manufacturers, then they certainly know about it, don't they, Jack?
No, sorry. Thank you all very much indeed. I really appreciate you both coming in. I know Jack was
Thank you.
very, very keen to have you here because, like I say, it really does help us. But hopefully that's been helpful for everybody to hear from a client that's got an engine now installed. Thank you very much. We can give a round of applause for we're going to get Matt in a hot seat now, but we can have one question if we can have that.
Yes, I don't quite understand, Paul. What's your marketing function and how does Jack relate to that?
For myself, it's kind of my role has evolved quite a bit. So now I'm looking at contracts. We're also creating little mini CRMs for trade partners. I'm more heavily focused on AI and building. When Jack facilitated the fulfillment of what I know needed to be done. And with Jack coming on board, I knew that was a critical part of our EBITDA. But some things that are happening in the first two revenue streams were unavoidable in terms of how much time I had to commit to them. Whereas Jack came along with a solution, it was just the whole action of it. They say like idea, it's the execution of the idea that matters. And Jack come aligned with what I also believe need to be done. And Jack just perfectly executed it. So Jack jumps on a weekly call with me. Is it weekly or?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you come into the office sometimes, don't you?
Once a month, typically.
Yeah.
Or,
And so we just have those as like, what's happened last week? What's going to happen this week? And it breaks down.
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate that. So yeah, round of applause, thanks. Thank you, guys. Anyone's got any questions about, like, obviously picking up on blind screen?
So people understand that Jack's run in life really starts with the lead arriving in the business.
I'll answer that question.
Oh, yeah.
By probably taking a step back.
That's right.
And then answering that. So when Jack was working with blind screen, so the sales engine framework that we'll talk a lot more about this afternoon, there's kind of 4 principles around it as far as, first of all, we've got to create the right strategy. And so that's understanding, right, what's the constraint of the business? So what's the constraint? What's the need? And how do we go about solving it? Then step 2 is then, right, what is the right systems in order to be able to do it? And there's, we want to always look at, right, what are the tasks that are high value? Lenny was talking about what I thought his genius zone, where he's best at. What is then the other stuff that takes his time away from that, takes him away? So when we're designing an engine, we want to kind of look around that first and make sure that the engine, the co-pilots and the AI and the automation support those high value tasks. So that's in the design. So it's specific to blind screen. When Jack started working with them, what they discovered was they had hundreds of leads that had already been sitting in the pipeline that they weren't doing anything with. And Jack's strategy was, well, how do we start maximizing these? There are opportunities that were sitting there that they were doing nothing with. So he went step 1 to step 10. This is how we're going to go solve. So in their case, there's leads already in the pipeline that are dormant that Jack's reactivating. But then on top of that, he's put a strategy to build some more new leads coming in.
But that goes, is he not straight into marketing?
So that's part of marketing, part of sales. So blind screen, because they've got a big marketing department, they've, in other functions are generating a lot of leads. When you're in B2B sales, and like looking at opening up new countries and new distributors, the marketing concept of where most people think about it, you can actually get a lot more effective by strategic outbound and being very targeted in your prospecting. In my head, that's a sales function, because in those cases, it's, I'm choosing who I want to sell to. I'm doing the research, I'm vetting them, I'm targeting them, making sure they're a good fit, and then I'm going and knocking on their door. Other people that are marketing folks will tell you that's a marketing function. Don't matter what you want to call it. It's about where do we generate the leads from, where the opportunity is coming from, and how we're going to go get in front of them. So for higher value clients, people, the manufacturers that blind screen target, don't wake up in the morning going, oh, I want something different. So part of the strategy that Jack created was about, right, how do we go find the right people first? And then how do we go start that conversation in a way that is going to engage them and move them forward? And then how do we qualify that conversation to make sure they're the right fit before we put them to? And inside of that, there's steps, there's tools, there's tactics, there's stuff that we can automate and just happens without us thinking about it. Then there's stuff that we use a co-pilot, to go and do and take the time consuming, tasks away from it. And then there's tools that the co-pilot use in order to kind of upskill and make that better decisions, for it. So it's all the stuff that most salespeople would do anyway, but it just takes a lot of time.
But we also look at, when we're talking about leads and conversion, over what time frame, right? Not every buyer buys today, tomorrow, next week, next month, but you'll say we got X amount of leads in last month, and how many did we convert? But as we all know nowadays, buyers, yes, they are more informed, but a lot of the time, it's not, they say it still takes 7 to 11 touch points, but who's in control of that? When they come into the CRM and they drop off, even when they buy, sometimes they drop out of the CRM, they go into account management. How often are they being told about new products? Realistically, how are we controlling that? So leads and conversion, absolutely 100%, but who owns every step of that? Well, Jack has oversight of that specifically with blind screen, but the co-pilot, who's essentially a physical VA, their job is to follow every single checklist. So heard someone mention Monday.com, phenomenal software, really good. We create a jobs list, but like every single day we create a momentum. 12, 18 month nurture sequences and cadences are pretty easy for us to set up and run and manage, because when we change track or we get a new product, we want to inform everybody. We want to inform all the people that bought from us last year. Yes, we do. What do we want to, if we've got new products or additional services, that's where the co-pilot comes in, because Jack will identify who we need to speak to. So we become very, very efficient at tagging leads as they come in. So then we can really start to stretch our legs and do that. And a lot of that can be automated. And the important thing is that it goes back into the appropriate lane then of nurture, because we're all busy people, and the co-pilot's role is to literally, do the doing, exactly what you would do as an engineer, as a business owner. I know if you got a lead, I know you'd look after it, but multiply that by 10, by 50, by 100, add years into that. That's where the value of having a partner in what we call a total sales engine comes into it, because you're getting access to all of the systems, the customer relationship management software, the resources, but also the accountability. So having a partner who's responsible for that allows you and your sales team to sell and do that, because we talk a lot. We're not the heroes here, right? We're going to come in and we're going to work with you as a strategic partner. We're going to bring additional resources into your business at the right time at a fraction of the cost, but we're going to deliver that in a much more strategic way. So you get to design that. You hire a full-time employee tomorrow. Are you confident enough to give them everything? Can you give them the keys to the ranch? If you give them I can give you the keys, but you don't want to hand everything over. So what we do is through the workshop is identify with you what good looks like, but also what great looks like. Didn't know if anybody had a question about either, like I say, the co-pilot's role or kind of how that came about, but yes, please.
How do you deal with security classifications? So I think there's quite a few defense and nuclear types. And so do you have assurances in place around data control?
Yeah, there's lots. So in any circumstances, first of all, we've got to create the right strategy. So different businesses, different requirements, different areas of focus, different areas of non-negotiables. So in your case, there's going to be a ring of non-negotiables and just stuff that has to be stored on your hand, can't be done. So I would suggest part of your engine is actually not necessarily about kind of getting our co-pilots to do the spec part of the sale, but looking at the communication and looking at the correspondence around that, because, there's always limitations to any system. So when we're designing it and when we're building it, it is, first of all, we put a ring around, right, this is the task that absolutely a trained human has to do, and we can't deviate from that. Then there's a much bigger task of going, well, what are the tasks that don't have to be done by you? What is the stuff that a co-pilot can do, and how can they enrich the data, find more, increase more volume, increase more skill, and make you more prepared? And then there's a group of tasks of what can be automated. So that's all comes down into the design. And the beautiful thing about the frameworks of how we built it is the same 4 profit levers, the same process we're going to go through this afternoon gives everyone here a completely unique circumstances and a unique engine that is easy to implement, easy to integrate, and easy to manage, that protects you. So that's how we kind of deal with it from there.
And from our side, we were just like Jack's process that they've installed, automating some of it. The co-pilot doesn't see any sensitive information at all. All they're doing is kind of just working the front end of the system. So Paul turns up on qualified sales calls really and does what he does best, right? Having somebody responsible for closing is super important. We've got to own that. We're not here to close all the deals for you, but what we are here to do is to streamline your process and get more of the right people coming to you at the right times. But I know, like I say, average lead time, it keeps drifting, but also the amount of information that people have. So we control the controllables. So when somebody comes onto a meeting, for example, with blind screen, Paul knows what they know.
Sorry. Co-pilot, that's a sort of human.
Yep.
So I created the name. Yeah. I created the name co-pilots to call our virtual assistants in 2014. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not as big as Microsoft and I don't have the budget. So that name is now being bastardized and everyone thinks of that. But for me, there's such a term and endearment for the team. And, we've got a whole social mission behind what I do with our co-pilots. I can't lose the name. So we should change it to something because it does create confusion, but I can't. But it's our train team in the Philippines, that effectively become your sales co-pilot.
So my co-pilot's called Kathleen. She's rearranging some other appointments and stuff. So it means I can be absent from my business, but every single day, tasks are being done exactly the way. Any new leads are being dealt with, they're being nurtured. So it means I do have a full-on virtual assistant doing exactly what I would do if I was able to do it, and it loves that. So every single thing that we do in our business needs visibility, it needs clarity, and we talk a lot about that. So hence why every single job has a task, every single job has an owner, and that's the sort of level that we're going to start opening up into for the next part of the session this afternoon. So sorry, Simon, you did have a question.
It's just kind of a question. You mentioned it before within our business, we're quite heavily, collectively here, it's not just tennis, but we're reliant on specific individuals in the company.
Yes.
And then having business up to them. With this system, does that just keep the cat down the road? So does the business then become reliant on, say, Jack, for example, or reliant on a specific co-pilot?
So take a step back, just take it to answer the question. What we need to understand first is, right, the specific people, what are the functions that they're doing? And then what is the stuff that they're doing repetitively? People are driving results. You've got the inconsistency. We first want to create a system that goes from cradle to grave, in that whole buying life cycle and get absolute clarity over where that sits and how that operates, which can be really overwhelming and really daunting. But as you kind of see this afternoon, when you understand what questions to ask in the right order and how to sequence it, we can take an infinite number of possibilities and bring it down to the 4 or 5 things that work for you. So first of all is getting the right system. Then we want to look at, right, what are the stuff that they absolutely have to do versus not. Now, you're never going to have a successful sales industry, and pretty much anyone that's in here, without relying on people. But what we want to do is make sure that the reliance on people is for the stuff that they need to do and is backed by a system that you can measure, you can manage, you can put numbers behind. One of the things we create in this is, once we've got the system, for you, we create what we call a bottom-up accountability. So most people, when you're talking about, accountability with your sales team, it's you barking down at them, like, what's happened with this lead, what's this, which creates resistance. It also then creates that reluctance from the sales team. When we build the system in place, we'll work with you to set your numbers, set your metrics up as far as what good looks like and what needs to happen from an activity point of view, also from a results point of view, because each step has to deliver a certain result to be able to move to the next step. So we can create that as a formula for you. But then we create the processes around it, and then the co-pilots are sitting there just monitoring those numbers constantly, and we set the rules and the standards of what they live by. And, for example, a lead in triage. If a lead's sitting in triage for more than 24 hours, that means someone hasn't done the right job. So a co-pilot would sit there and message whoever's responsible for triage. Hey, look, I just noticed that lead sitting in there. How can I help you? And it comes from that place of service. It comes from that place of support. So, the guys were talking about all the chats and WhatsApp. That's all that going on. They're just constantly looking at what needs to happen on a daily basis to protect the rhythm and to be able to, achieve the results that you need to achieve. And anytime something starts to drift, anytime something drops because you're busy, you're distracted, you miss it, life gets in the way, they're constantly just asking the questions. And one of the big advantages, say, doing that in the Philippines, that plays to their strengths. No one in the UK, no one in Australia, no one in America wants to spend hours looking at a computer screen every day and have a list of 150 tasks that they need to do every single day. We just don't function that way. That's what they thrive in. They thrive on that structure. So we build the systems to play to their strengths so they can be the ones that are protecting it and driving it. And then we use that to enable your sales team and you guys to operate in your high value. So there's always a reliance on people, but if it's around the system, you can replace the people and it'll still get the results.
So your business model and your assets always protected because you're creating this system which is based on your true north. I've been strategically placing the book everywhere. You must be noticing by now. But Matt wrote the book Sales Rhythm, and the book tells the story of how we as certified partners go into businesses and help them to install sales engines. And it's a storybook. So it literally is like, it talks about the fractional sales leader in there. It's called Rachel. And it talks about how she engages with the team and how the team engage back. But it's designed to give people a clear understanding of the fact that we are in that business to support, to engage with, to take out everything that's working well and develop that into a system and create what we call sales rhythm. We have a little language in there. We refer to sales theatre, which we're all aware of if we've been running sales teams. So people looking busy and saying, oh yeah, I made that. And you're like, yeah, but is it driving change? Is it driving, moving the needle? And is it making us go towards our goals? And the book tells the story of how everyone has a part to play in that. All the confidence that comes from this is yours as well. If you want to hire a sales director on the back of it, we'll help you. Right? We will help you actively. This model that we have, the workshop, will give you clarity on how you want your business to move, and then also what skills you need. But I met Matt 7 years ago. We stayed friends, remained friends, and then ultimately we started working together. It's about a year ago now, in a short space of time now. So 8 months since we officially launched. I launched my business in the UK. So we've managed to get to 10 partners now in the UK, covering lots of different disciplines. And, we are here as agents of change, to coin what Jack says quite frequently. We are agents of change, and we're here to support businesses, but by working together with them. Thank you very much. We're going to carry on. We're going to start to unpack what a sales engine could look like within your businesses. So thank you all very much. Thank you, mate.